Hello, and welcome back to the Awakening Philosophy Podcast. My name is Jed. Thank you for joining me. We are in the Ox Herding Pictures. We're in the book, of course, Socrates and Jesus, A Dialogue in Heaven, but we've been given a side quest by Socrates. Can we create a map for the stages of enlightenment that a soul goes through using, the book itself as a kind of model? Because we're asked to write a sequel to this book, Socrates and Buddha. What was the name of it? Socrates and Buddha. Let me check it out. I think it was just Socrates and Buddha. That's it. Within which we so we're asked to write a sequel to the book. The suggested title is The Dialogue Between Socrates and the Buddha, where we create a map for the stages of enlightenment. If we think of the conversation with Jesus as a movement from belief into understanding, we could look at or belief into knowing, maybe, through understanding. We can look at the conversation between Socrates and Buddha as a movement from knowledge knowledge, enlightenment through understanding to the through the development of enlightenment. So, it's interesting because Jesus has had a single, and at least in the story of Mark, experience of mind, but fails to develop it through understanding, and has to overcome his attachment to belief or faith. So when somebody actually wants to develop an understanding of mind, they can have the conversation that we would write in our sequel. So, a movement through the stages of mind and self, through understanding, through a map. So that's where we are. And we have covered so far, we've recognized the first two stages of ignorance. 3, 4, and 5 go together nicely. A kind of a glimpse in 3, a strong counterattack in 4, still struggling with our counterattacks and our movement from our old ways of being, but gaining some success in 5, and looking ahead from 5 into what would it be like to be free of our problems. 6, riding the ox. So, 3, let's look at it. Here we go. Number 1, searching for the ox, seeking the ox. I'm using this one here. Seeking the ox. Stuck in our problems, which is ironic because we're not actually seeking the ox. Or no, it sounds like we're not seeking the ox because we think we know. We think we know ourselves. We think we know self and reality. We think our own personal opinions and beliefs about right and wrong are correct. And we're justified in inflicting violence or revenge or punishment against people based on our own false opinions about right and wrong, which, as we've seen in the book, is bad. Violence and punishment do not solve problems. We are stuck in the physical world seeking worldly gain, and fearing loss. I'm cracking my back. Well, a state of mind of fearful, desolate, lots of tangents, but searching for something he cannot yet find. So even though we think there's no use searching for that which we know, because we are ignorant, we're still seeking it. We're still alive. We're still here for a reason. We're still here to do something. And we're still living. We're still doing things. So there is some motivation to be better, to reach some good, to achieve things. So we are still seeking the ox. But we never find it because of our ignorance. Finding the tracks. Starting to discover there is some tracks. Now, each one of these, each of the images in the ox herding pictures should be a metaphor. So what other tracks a metaphor to? Could the tracks of the ox be the intelligibility? Noticing patterns, understandable patterns in reality. Could it be the logos? Could the tracks be the logos? Over yonder, we see the trampled grass. What we're learning through our reading is that there might be some understandability to things, to our problems in remote mountains, and an understandability to what we're seeking, our happiness, our good, our benefit, the fragrant grass. That's why we read. To discover that there is an understandability to the good that we're here to perfect and achieve with excellence, and our problems which block our development, our problems are solvable. But he has not actually entered the gate. So you're reading, but you haven't yet jumped in. 3, perceiving, or the first glimpse of the ox. You're starting to have experiences. Now, we need both experience and understanding. So, you could apply either to these. You've made use of the dialectic that you've been learning through understanding, and you're actually seeing a change. You're actually benefiting. Or knowledge. You've had a glimpse, you've had an experience of something other than the physical world through your physical senses. He has come to realization that, now again, 2 kinds of realization, either through understanding or direct experience, that at that instant he can see the very source. That our senses are no different from the one sense of self, the source. Now, we can ask a question, could this be an experience of the source of mind, divine luminosity, the whole of parts, or the self? Could be either, it seems. They are both sources. One self is the source of mind, but mind is the source of the physical world. States of mind we're looking for. We're looking for what's encountered, state of mind, how it functions, and how it can anticipate the next stage. What's encountered? The ox, whatever the ox represents, the source. State of mind, realization. I hear the song of the nightingale. In every activity, the source is present, manifestly. It's in everything, like salt in the seawater. How does it function? Seems to be a wondering, a realization and a wondering. And the wondering is also an anticipation of the next stage, because we're wondering, how could we nail this down? What artist could portray it? Could portray what we're seeing? Now, we've often talked about when people say it's unintelligible or it's ineffable or you can't understand it or it's beyond words, that is almost always an indication of a block. That's at the level that you're stuck at. Whether it be someone who's had a glimpse of source, mind or self, and says, well, that's it, I'm done. No one could possibly understand that. Like 3, what artist could portray it? What artist could draw the massive head and those majestic horns? Well, if that's where you're stuck, then that's where you're stuck. Or someone like Insane Clown Posse saying magnets. No one can, and Donald Trump, the most ignorant, saying things like, surely no one could understand magnets. So at that very, very low level, that's where I'm blocked. Belief, of course, teaches children that from a young age. You can't understand the meaning of life. You can't understand God. You can't understand where you go when you die or where you were before you were here. Just do as you're told. Otherwise, you will suffer in hell.
We definitely are not born with a starter kit of beliefs, buddy. Religion is shoved into children's brains forcibly through indoctrination, and if it's any kind of fundamentalism, it's essentially child abuse. Even if a kid was to come to this conclusion totally out of their own accord, that there is a divine entity that created everything, it sure as fuck wouldn't be the malicious sociopathic god that you assholes worship.
Professor Richard there, summing it up. So, wonder, curiosity, stung, we might say. Stung. Now, stung is a good state of mind. You realize there's something you don't know, but you're curious about it. In fact, this state of curiosity and wondering and puzzlement and carrying questions, thinking about questions, talking about questions, is what's guided us all the way through our philosophical journey. Socrates even talks, as we've read in the Meno, Socrates talks about that as a state that he is in, even at the end of his journey. He is, as Meno gets upset when he claims to be stung. I used to be able to give these great speeches about these things, but now I realize I can't because I don't know. Oh, damn you, Socrates. You're like a stingray who has stung me in the middle of the ocean, and now I can't move or talk. Funny, he's giving a big speech while he's saying that, but Socrates says, well, actually, I'll take that criticism, so long as you recognize I've only stung you by virtue of me being even more stung myself. So it's a good thing. What can we become curious about? What can we puzzle about? That seems to be a necessary part of an openness to insight and learning itself. So, could that be the state of mind of 3? Puzzled by a new insight or experience? And what is the anticipation? What artist could portray them? How can we understand this? How can we benefit from this artistically? Now, art for the Greeks, well, this isn't Greek, but for the Greeks, the idea of art is to use something that is understandable, that has a model that can be known and parts that can be understood, and use that skillfully to benefit the subject. Number 4, catching the ox. So, seeking the ox, finding the tracks, glimpse of the ox, catching the ox. He's actually grasped it. So this anticipation of 3, how could we grasp it? How could we nail it down? You're starting to grasp it. You're starting to understand it. But the will of the mind, or the ox, is great and powerful, great will and power, inexhaustible. He charges to the high plateau far above the cloud mists. He's running away from you. Your mind wants to go, or in an impenetrable ravine he stands. Today he encountered the ox, which had been cavorting in the wild fields, and actually grasped it. So for a long time it has reveled in its surroundings. That breaking out of its old habits is not easy. Sounds like the counterattack as a whole stage. As we've been seeing, that's the two basic things we're here to do. Develop, follow the logos to our excellence, perfection, and purify our blocks or the pathologos, which manifest as counterattacks to our development and insight as well. So blocking us from the things, and then also counter-attacking us when we do get the things. The ox continues to yearn for sweet scented grasses and is still stubborn and unbridled. If he could tame it completely, he must use the whip. So what would the whip represent? Reading, continuing to read and reflect on our reading. The dialectic, doing midwifery, doing dream analysis. The virtues, practicing, following the logos, staying in the game. He must tightly grasp the rope. So for you, what do you think each of these metaphors mean? What does the rope mean? For the ox still has unhealthy tendencies. Even while he tugs it by the nose, it might well turn his head towards old haunts. Could fall here. Taming the ox, starting to have some success. The whip and rope are still necessary, or else it may stray down some dusty road, still having counterattacks or tangents that distract you from your goals, sap your energy, focus. Psychic parasites, we call them, the pathologos. Being well trained, he becomes naturally gentle. Then anticipating what would it be like to be completely unfettered in the next stage. So having some successes. You're actually noticing a change of your mind. You had an insight in 3. Number 1, you're not even in the game, stuck in ignorance. 2, you're starting to learn that there is a path that we're to walk. 3, you're in the path, you've had a glimpse, you've had some experiences. That should be motivating and inspiring curiosity and wonder. 4, everything you've done up until now has been in opposition to the learning of the logos and the development of self and mind. So you got to face all that again. You got to retrain yourself, practice the virtues, keep your cool as you follow the logos. Don't get wrapped up in other people's dramas because they are not in the game. Easy to tell if they're not talking about their logos, their insights, or reflecting on their pathologos, then they're not in the game. They are stuck in their zombie virus, trying to egg you into participating in their bullshit fake drama because they still think it's real. They're still in one. Ignorance, thinking their false opinions from childhood are real. Got to keep your cool. Temperance, one of the virtues. And as people try and distract you into other things, old habits, unhealthy tendencies, old dramas and games, you got to seek the logos. Drop all those old ways of being. Courage. And instead of being ruled by your old habits, being ruled by the logos, there's wisdom. Doing it all the time is justice. So those are the 4 virtues that we have to practice. So we're facing that. We're facing our old way of being in 4, but we're having some success in 5, so long as we are still practicing. It ain't natural yet. You're still learning. You're still, learning and practicing the nurturing of that learning. But you're getting insight. You're having success because of what you've been doing. And you recognize the rising of one thought with the rising of one thought, another and another are born. The pattern of the logos that has brought you in, the footprints of the ox you are seeing, are also the thoughts. It's not just the physical world that follows an intelligible pattern from source communicating to you for your benefit. Every thought you have is the same. It's the same as our physical patterns in order. So too, every thought follows a structure, a pattern, sending a message providentially from the source to you as a soul to help you realize the true nature of yourself and mind. Enlightenment of 5 brings the realization that thoughts are not unreal, since they all arise from our true nature. It's only our delusion that still remains that would cause us to imagine that they are unreal, to beat ourselves up for our thoughts, to try and ignore our thoughts, to take drugs to suppress our thoughts, to engage in tangents because of our thoughts, to ignore our thoughts. That's why true meditation, people who do true meditation, have a notepad underneath their cushion, so whenever a thought comes up that distracts them, they realize, that's 4 and 5. I can struggle against my thoughts and be stuck in 4, or I can pull that notebook and pencil out from under my cushion and jot down some notes about the state of mind, what was encountered, how it functions, and how it ends. The very 4 things that we are looking for in these, you can take notes about that thought that came up. Apply those same 4 things, the dialectic structure. What did you think? To your thoughts. And then put it under your cushion and go back to your goal. Eventually, you'll have a bunch of notes and you'll notice a pattern, a theme. You're noticing the footprints of the ox. The pattern of, you'll start to notice patterns and themes reoccurring in those notes that you've been taking, which is the exact material you need for the dialectic of midwifery. And your dreams will help you with them too. The guidance of your dream maker through dream analysis. So noticing the ox in your everyday thoughts. So as we said earlier, whenever you say, this thing can't be understood, that's probably your block. So in number 3, someone had a glimpse of the ox and said, well, you can imagine someone, the positive conclusion, what's encountered, the state of mind, how it functions, and its conclusion. The positive conclusion was, let's try and understand it. What artist could portray them? But the negative version would be someone saying, definitely you can't understand that experience. Blocked. You can say every stage could function as a block. If you are ending in a negative conclusion. That's one of the reasons dreams are so fantastic. It gives you both. What's encountered could be an object or a metaphor or words that reflect the logos or pathologos. Your state of mind could be a high state or a low state. How it functions or the drama that plays out in your dream can lead to the conclusion, successes or failures. Dreams can do both. So the end of stage 1, seeking the ox. In the evening he hears cicadas chirping in the trees. Does nature follow some pattern? Is there some song that others are seeking? Here I am, desolate, alone, fearful, greedy for my own self-gain. My ideas of right and wrong are just used to attack. So belief-based, right-wing, fascist, religious. Attacking others, attacking groups, attacking people who are not sharing my idea of right and wrong. But is there a greater song being sung by others? That could be a curiosity that leads you to continue to learn. Or, well, how do blocked people relate to nature, to animals? They prove their loyalty to Donald Trump by shooting their puppies, by murdering others, murdering the poor people, the American citizens, the Palestinian people. So you could have a negative reaction to others who are doing something different. Cicadas singing a song in the trees. Number 2, finding the tracks. Even the deepest gorges or the topmost mountains can't hide this ox's nose that reaches to heaven. You're starting to notice that there are patterns that are understandable, that you may be able to benefit from. Are you going to stay on the sidelines? Or are you going to jump in? Could go either way. Number 3, first glimpse. You've had a glimpse. Again, a realization, either through understanding or direct experience of some kind, of a greater source, realizing that there is a source that's our own nature, that we're always a part of, that's always present. But hey, are you saying, surely no one can understand that? Or are you seeking to understand that? What artist could portray them? Could go either ways. As in, what artist could portray them? None. That's it. Or, well, I wonder what kind of an artist I would have to be to nail it down. It could go either way. 3. 4, catching the ox. Struggling, still needing it's a great struggle against all of your old habits. Breaking it isn't easy because for so long you've been in your problems. You've been meditating on your false idea of self and reality, your false image of yourself that you've identified with your whole life. It's struggling. Or, as the Oracle saying,
personality maxing requires you to look inward on a deeper level, and it's harder to fix because then you have to make fundamental changes to who you are as a person, and it's because it feels like a much more core component of themselves that they don't want to change. Like, it's like, well, then if I change this, who am I?
So personality maxing is what the cool kids are saying today, is changing, going through the stages of development of self and mind and your functioning. It's the same thing. What is encountered? What's the self? What's your state of mind? How does it function? Are you functioning through understanding or belief? And how does it end? The same 4 things that Socrates has told us to look for in these ox herding pictures you can use to understand ourselves. Which is kind of makes sense because these ox herding pictures are supposed to describe different stages of self-development. But the difficulty is, compared to looks maxing, where people, some people smash their face with a hammer so they can get a more alpha jaw, apparently, is what some people are doing. Looks maxing is personality mixing. Improving your sense of self is more difficult because your whole life you've been identifying with this image. You've been meditating on this false idea of self. So it's not easy to break through. That's 4. You're struggling against your old habits. So you got to grasp the rope tightly and not let it go. Stay in the game. Don't give up. Don't get black-pilled. Now that you've awoken to a greater way of being than belief or the regular fascist capitalism or fascist right wing or fascist religious bullshit, any of that stuff, your old family ways of being, now that you've seen that something better, you can change, you can develop. All of the things that kept you entrenched in your ignorance and old ways of being will fight back. You're in for. But even while he tugs on the ox, the old states of mind, by the nose, there he is pulling the rope which is attached to the nose apparently of the ox. Even while he tugs it by the nose, it might well turn its head towards its old haunts. You're still having failures, you're still falling down. So stay in the game. Correct yourself. Take every failure or misstep or problem as a potential insight. Just as we talked about in meditation as an example, whatever your meditation is, maybe doing a dialectical reflection on something you've been reading. What is beauty? What is the ox-herding pictures? What is the self? That's what you can wonder about as you sit. Doesn't have to be counting your breaths or counting backwards from 10. Or you could even create a meditation on any one of these stages. Like number 5, with the rising of one thought comes another and another, but they're not unreal because they arise from our true nature. So you could do a meditation, and I've seen this done. Look at your thoughts, observe your thoughts. Don't reject them, and don't try and utilize them for what you think is good, because what you think of good just reflects your current level of, well, development. You want to go beyond. You want to gain further insight. You want to see something that you've yet to see or you've forgotten. So don't reject it. That claims like you know, claims as though you know. Don't try and use it for what you think. That's just going to keep you stuck at whatever level you're at. Watch it. Wonder about it. Follow questions about it. What's a question you could follow about your thoughts in meditation? Where do they rise from? Does one cause another? Does one end? When it ends, where does it go? Where does the next one come from? Where does that go? And if they are all arise from our true nature, can you trace them back? Where do they start? And what's that got to do with your nature? So you could do a meditation, that would be a fantastic meditation, on the 5th ox-herding picture. But as we see in 4, you will have a block. Thoughts will come up. Your old habits. Don't think about that. That's stupid. Thoughts are not interesting. You know what's interesting? Tom Cruise. That's a bad example. Because he's not popular anymore. Who's the popular actor? Ariana Grande. She's doing interesting things, but controversial things. Think about that. Old haunts, old dramas, old gossips. Things that soon will become boring enough and they won't drag your attention away, but in 4 they do. So just as in whatever meditation you're doing, as we've learnt from 5, it's all a message. Pull out your notepad. What did you encounter? What were the words? What were the images of yourself? What was your state of mind? 1 and 2. How did it function? Was there a little drama that played out? And how did it end? As we've seen, the conclusion could be positive or negative. Now, if it's a distracting tangent, almost certainly, most likely it will be a negative conclusion. But hey, even that you could use in that meditation we've been doing. Hey, that tangent, where did it come from? What was its source? False image of self. And how did it end? Did you wake up? Because at some point you realize, oh, that was a tangent. I was supposed to be doing my meditation. or reading the book. How did that end? So that can even be a source for meditation, but also a source for insight in our midwifery that you do afterwards. In other words, no punishment. That's savage. If there are footprints, then there is an understandability. If there are footprints, there has to be an ox. There has to be an intelligence governing everything. The nature of it, the source of everything. And if there is this intelligence, it has to have itself a source. It's self a source. It's self, the self. As we've been reading in the book, the ox or the mind is like the rays of the sun or the scent of the flower. The experience of the perfection, or the greatest what is encountered of that mysterious fifth category, as we've seen, as we've been seeing. We have 1, 2, 3, 4 cognitive functions and a mysterious fifth above it. We've seen that pattern all the way through. The dialectic: definition, demonstration, division, and conclusion, with a mysterious fifth stage above it. The 5 causes: material, activity, instrumental, paradigmatic, and the fifth above it, the final. That for the sake of which. So, if there is what is encountered, an encountering of mind or the ox, then there has to be a source of that. In other words, if there is a source that is intelligible, then punishment or beating yourself up or blaming others or attacking others or cruelty, any sort of punishment, violence, cruelty, torture, suffering, is completely irrational and just a mark of ignorance. Because you can apply these same questions to those tangents, blocks, or states of ignorance to recognize it's a message. Now, you might not be able to see that completely in 4, which is why you have to there is a kind of struggle, and you need will and power, and you're facing an inexhaustible will or power, seemingly, of your pathologos to break your old habits. So you have to tightly grasp the rope to overcome your unhealthy tendencies. Otherwise, you might turn your head towards old haunts. In 5, you're starting to see that it is in fact true. You're having success in 5. You are seeing that every thought, even the ones that we normally use as a justification to beat ourselves up or inflict punishment or torture or suffering on our fellow human beings, even that fucking horseshit is stupid, because it's all an intelligible message from self to yourself. And the only thing that rejects that is your own blind delusion, stage 1. So we can see that you can shift between these ox-owning pictures. It's your delusion, it's your ignorance that says, no, surely there's not a message to be learnt from that person, or that thing I don't like, or that crime. We have to inflict as much suffering onto that human being. That's the only way they can learn to catch the ox. Bull fucking shit. The state of delusion does not originate in the objective world, but in our own minds. So we're starting to, because of our work in 4, struggling through midwifery in the dialectic and dream analysis, we're starting to understand the principles of midwifery, dialectic, and dream analysis. And recognize, oh shit, our problems are things we carry from in our minds from our pathologos, false beliefs of self and reality from childhood. You're starting to notice that everything is a message. Every moment can be fun. Because you're either getting a message about your excellence or a clue, a message about your problem. And we benefit by solving both mysteries. It's a win-win.
It's a win-win-win-win-win-win.
So we are having success in 5. We're in success in our understanding. We're starting to understand the whole process, figure out why it is the way it is. That, see for ourselves. So 4, we're struggling. We don't yet see it, but we're still trying our best. 5, we're starting to see it. Starting to see the intelligibility of reality and our problems. So there's our understanding benefit, but also we're starting to have experience benefit as well. Those are the 2 things, knowing and understanding, experience or ousia and logos. So while our understanding in 5 is we're starting to understand the patterns and it's a message from our true source, we are gaining our success in our state of being as well, because our mind, or the ox, is becoming clean and gentle, becoming naturally gentle. So we're starting to become aware of our self nature as source. We're starting to see we are seeing the patterns that manifest in every possible way of the logos. And we're starting to experience our own state of, what would you call it? Naturally gentle, calm, serene, but also clean. What would that be? Clear, pure, starting to experience something clear and serene. Anticipation of the next. What would it be if we finish this thing we've been struggling about in 4 and having successes in 5? Sounds like if we're having successes towards a goal, that means the goal is reachable. What would it be like to finish? Now, as we've been saying, we can also recognize where you or a friend might be blocked. What if they say you can't? There is no removal of the pathologos. There is no reaching of a full knowing of self or a full integration with mind or ox. That's beyond you. See? The end could be a success or failure. This end, hey, what would it like to be untethered? To have a mind completely willingly following its master? No need for this discipline? Impossible could be a conclusion. So there's that same conclusion pointing to a failure, or wonderful and inspiring, I'm going to keep moving. That could be leading to success. See? Could go either way. Which means when you meet someone, you could ask the 2 questions. How's your what's your highest vision and understanding at the moment about self and reality, or your most meaningful goals? Or the other question, how are your blocks? What are your blocks you're facing? And whatever they talk about, you could say, oh, that sounds like one of these oxiding pictures. Oh, your vision sounds like a glimpse. You're here. And in talking about it, relating in a providential way with other people, you can lead them to their conclusion. Ah, interesting. So by the way, what would it be like to nail down that insight? What artist could portray them, seeing as you're in 3? Wouldn't that be a nice way of helping people develop? And the second question that you can ask someone, technically you could say there's three questions. What have your dreams been like? Which covers both A and B. But the second question, where are you blocked? Oh, I'm frustrated because everyone's stupid. I have this great insight, but surely it's not understandable. Hey, I thought I experienced myself outside of my physical body, but if that was the case, then surely there must be smarter people than me, before me, who's understood what happens when we die. Surely it's not understandable to know the meaning of life or the true nature of ourselves beyond the physical world, because otherwise, why aren't our politicians doing that? Why don't they have this level of wisdom? Shouldn't we be ruled by our most insightful, wise people? And how come everything I learnt in modern academia about philosophy is just bullshit fucking opinions, and no one actually nailing down the true nature of where we go when we die, or the nature of reality, or the nature of divine? Why is it all conflict based on belief and ignorance, like religious conflict? Therefore, it's ununderstandable. Oh, so you're blocked at number 3. What artist could portray them? Surely not me, because all of the other human beings probably would have done it, because I'm just a small bean. I'm a small bean and bad noodle, so surely I can't figure out these things. So, 2 kinds of questions. Where are you at? Where are you stuck? You can have this map to pinpoint what level they're at, or what stage they're stuck at, or what stage they're in. Oh, it's ununderstandable. I'm giving up. Oh, you're in 3. Let me ask you some questions to show you something about 4. What if there's a way of breaking out of your old patterns? What if there is an intelligible process, but you need to grasp the rope? Or maybe you could give them talk to them about what it was like to be in 2 prior. Hey, by the way, before you had this glimpse, were you also certain that there was no such thing as a glimpse of a non-physical reality? There's just a physical world? Maybe you've read books, sutras, and teachings from, I don't know, Eastern spirituality, or if you're really special, Platonic philosophy, Socrates or Pierre Grimes. And if you're really, really lucky, a Balboa translation of the Platonic dialogues, as well as Pierre Grimes. So you've been reading about it, that maybe it can exist, but you are certain that it can't, because everything that you remember experiencing has been through your physical senses. Remember what it was like to be back then? To be certain that there was nothing other than the physical world? Materialism, empiricism, Aristotelianism. But then you had a glimpse. Then you had that success in meditation, but then you took those mushrooms, but then you're at that rave, but then however it happened. So by having a conversation about 2, because you recognize them at 3, that could help them see through their block. So what are you doing? You're showing that they exist in an intelligible framework. You are showing a demonstration of understanding of where they're at 3, where they came from 2, and where they're headed 4. Demonstrating an understandability of where they're at, so they can't be lost, desolate, It's hard to black pill understanding when they're actually demonstrating understanding, but also you're using your understanding in a providential way. They're seeing, oh, hang on a second, understanding isn't what everyone else in the world seems to use it for. Daggers. Every politician, religious authority, every CEO and parents try to use language to win a debate so that they can chimp you. Oh, you've done something wrong. Now I can punish you and play out my ignorance. Sit in daddy's chair and punish you the way I was, because that's my idea of ignorance. Hang on a second, we're not using understanding in that way. We're doing the opposite of punishment. Opposite of blame, shame, sin, hell. Words that imply wrongness. You're sick, you've got this disease, you're a heathen, you're a terrorist, you're a woke, you're an infidel, you're a sinner. Fuck off, we're not doing any of that. So you're showing an understanding of where they're at, where they came from, and where they're going, or any of them, you can pick any. But you're also showing that you are a human being that uses understanding in a caring way. That's huge. How many people do that? Too few. But what's it like to talk to someone who uses understanding in that way? Nice, inspiring? Could it open your mind? Could it benefit? Could it demonstrate a possible model that they can move into? Could you be showing them a new way of being? All they grew up with was MAGA, so all they know as a way of being is to hurt people and use words to repeat catchphrases that villainize people, to justify sadism and cruelty. Because the idea of knowing for believers, any kind of belief-based way of being, is cruel and smug. But now, hang on a second, this could be the first time that they're experiencing somebody using human language in a nice way, in a beneficial way, caring way, demonstrating a new way of being. So you've identified them in either their highest vision within 3, or their block as that block at the end of 3. You can talk about what it would be like to be in 4. Actually, there is this method of philosophical midwifery where it's a struggle, it's a relationship, it's not a one-off, but you can grasp the rope and overcome those unhealthy tendencies through a kind of understanding to break those old habits that say you can't do it. You can talk about, hey, the previous stage too. Remember when you didn't even think there was something beyond the physical? But now you are. Oh, does that shake you up a bit? Could you apply that as a principle to where you're at currently? Saying, oh, I surely can't understand this glimpse. Or you could talk about the third. You could demonstrate an understanding of where they're at. Hey, by the way, this glimpse, what was it like? Did you get was it in an instant? Did you get an insight into the very source of yourself or reality? Did you experience your 6 senses? Now, 6, I'm guessing, includes thought. Did you somehow unify thinking and seeing and feeling and hearing into a single sense? Was that what it was like? Is that a funny description of it? Funny, but perhaps accurate? A single sense, that's the true source? Was there some realization that it was always present and it always is present, and it was just something that was somehow right in front of your eyes the whole time, but you were somehow blind to? You're in some sort of fog that took you away from it? What does that do? What was their block? What artist could portray it? You can't understand this. Are we demonstrating an understanding of it? And if we can understand their position as another person, what does that mean? It means they're not crazy.
I'm always good. No,
Wait.
You're not the one that's mentally unwell. You're brave. You are crossing into new boundaries.
They're not crazy. because it's something two people have understood. Hey, by the way, you can even reflect on the conversation. Well, if you and I are both connecting through understanding, what does that say? There seems to be some understandability that we are participating in. By the way, what's it like? Is it nice? Is it fun? Is it interesting? Is it better than watching a movie or gossiping? So the activity, the logos, or the ousia, the reflection on the activity, to recognize the benefit. So what was their block? You can't understand it. By understanding their position, were we showing that that ain't the case? Not through belief, not by lecturing at them, or getting like the God botherers in the streets that I have to deal with, screeching at people through your microphone that you're a sinner. It's not a speech, not a monologue, even though that's all we get on the media and in religion, a monologue by some fucking preacher, or some monologue by some fucking politician, or some monologue by some fucking talking head on the media. No belief. Indoctrination is they're participating in the logos. And seeing that there is an understandability. Could that challenge their block? So those are three ways, where they came from, where they're at, and where they're going, of relating providentially, beneficially to other people, using this map we've been developing, and recognizing there are only two basic questions you can ask: where you're at. Now I can find your highest vision and understanding within these ox-herding pictures, or where you blocked. What would be a block? Wherever you're at, you can't go any further. What's the going further? Remember the four things? What's encountered, the state of mind, how does it function, and the anticipation of the sequel, which is usually the last line in these ox-herding pictures. So are you blocked? Can you go any further? In other words, the last line, are you taking it negatively? So what artist could portray that if you are stung, curious, wondering, puzzling? Again, not denying it, rejecting it, or not trying to use it for whatever you're at currently. Wow, I'm in this good state of mind. I'm going to use it to do this thing I already do. I'm going to make use of it. I'm going to apply the stat points into where I think it should go. No, you're just going to... I'm a warrior. I'm going to use this insight or conversation or experience to pour more stats into my strength stat. Hang on a second. What if the real purpose of this power, insight, is to upgrade you from warrior to paladin? Then by you making use of it in the way that you are thinking, you're just going to use it to stay where you're at. By rejecting it, again, you are presuming you know better, and you are rejecting it. You're going to be blocked. You're not going to get the benefit. But by being curious, asking questions, wondering, looking, by the way, you have to look for the questions, looking for the questions, having fun wondering about the questions, you're not blocked. What artist could portray them? Wow, how can we want that? What kind of an artist would that be? What kind of an artist would have this glimpse as part of their vision? What kind of an artist would use it to benefit the subjects of their art? Imagine talking about that instead of gossip. So it's not a block. But same exact line, what artist could portray that taken negatively? What artist what possible artist could make sense of this vision I've had? Surely none, because otherwise we wouldn't have the religion I grew up with, or the politicians wouldn't be so ignorant, or my parents wouldn't have been so fervent in saying you can't know this shit, or it would mean that I'm not a small bean in a bad noodle, and I know I am. So surely no artist can, see? Same thing taken negatively. Not with looking for questions and puzzling and wondering about them, curiosity, the good reaction, the negative. Certainty. Hey, ever met a fascist, racist, sexist, whatever? Have you ever been surprised with how goddamn certain they are, with how in their ignorance? Ever heard of the Dunning-Kruger effect? Certainty, as opposed to intelligent question seeking and wonder, is the mark of a block. Only we are getting a map through these oxiding pictures, applying the logos and pathologos in our understanding of the dialectic to them, so we can make use of it. That's the dialectic. Applying the logos and pathologos to this map so that we can use it in dialogue or the dialectic to benefit. See? So that first question, what's your vision? What's your highest vision and understanding? Your highest goal so far? Leading them to that end. Oh, what would it be like to actually integrate it? What do you mean? Well, we've been talking about this vision or this understanding of this glimpse of something non-physical, or an understanding that there must be a non-physical cause to what we see as effects in the physical world. Yeah. It's been a great conversation, a great dialectic. Back and forth, not speeches. By the way, what would it be like to nail it down? What do you mean? Well, aren't you a musician? What would it be like to make songs about it? Wow, that would really move me forward. Or the other question you can ask, where are you blocked? Or maybe they answer it. They say, well, no, that can't happen because you can't understand it. What artist could possibly incorporate this in their songwriting? So to recognize where they're at and ask, and using, hey, you're at 3, this might be the question that you ask. Or if they're stuck, showing an understanding of where they're at, which might wake them up, reflecting on where they were in 2, and maybe even talking about where they could be in 4. So the significance of having this map with understanding, it's a win-win.
It's a win-win-win-win-win.
Win-win-win-win-win.
It's a win-win-win-win.
It's a win-win.
And I find that very entertaining.
Very entertaining, right,
The
Emma?
more holes, the better.
Of course. So the glimpse in 3, glimpsing the ox. 4, catching the ox, the struggle. Same thing. Where are you at? Well, I've been struggling to change my personality, Max. But my old habits are strong, blah, 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 blah. I might turn towards my old haunts. See, could be a block. I'm certain I will. Or maybe I won't. See, might could go either way. There's your possible block or your possible openness, curiosity, and inspiration to move, continue development, anagogic movement upward. Might could go both ways. And again, talk about where they're at. Oh yeah, no, we can talk about that. We can show it's understandable. It's perfectly understandable to be struggling, to feel like there's not going to be any change in your state of being. And as a metaphor, perfectly understandable to feel like there's not going to be a change in the world. The world is governed by ignorance, and we can never do any better. As a metaphor, because that's a reflection of ourselves. To feel like you can't change, you can't grow, you can't overcome your own ignorance. Perfectly understandable. So showing an understandability of where they're at. By the way, back when it was just a glimpse, could you even imagine yourself trying to nail it down like an artist? Could that break their certainty? Hey, by the way, might turn towards the old haunts. What would it be like to have some success? Talk about 5, someone who's having success. So, 2 questions, where you at, where you stuck. Using this map. And how we can talk about their stage, where they were from, and where they're going. Either one of those 3. Past, present, and future, if you like. to help them continue to move forward. Taming the bull, that's having the success. But again, how does it finish? What would it be like to be completely untethered? You no longer have to use the whip and the rope. In number 5, the whip and the rope are still necessary. Again, what would that mean? Midwifery, dialectic, dream analysis, reading, reflecting, practicing the virtues? What would it be? Could it be a block? Untethered? You can never free yourself from your problems. Oh, can't be untethered. By the way, can you get curious about what it might be like to be not even needing a method, not even needing the rope, to be completely free of your problems? Nope, I'm blocked. Oh, really? By the way, when you were in 4 struggling, could you even imagine having success? Oh no, I guess I couldn't. And you were certain you would never, but you stayed in the game anyway, and now your mind is becoming more gentle? Could you imagine your way of being as more gentle and serene and open at times? No, I couldn't imagine myself. I always imagined myself as a hothead. Or as a black pill or whatever. Oh, so you can change. Does that make you curious about what it would be like to be free? By the way, let's talk about number 5. Yes, I'm going to use understanding to understand where you're at. Which is a connection between souls or selves. And demonstrating that we can use understanding to benefit. By saying, hey, it's completely understandable to feel like you can't be free of your problems, considering all the work you've been doing in 4 and 5. But hey, by the way, we're only in step 5. Would that help free someone? To show that their position is quite rational and understandable, but it's only a part within a whole. Could that help free them from their certainty and block? Or talk about where they could be going. By the way, what would it be like to ride the bull? Hey, imagine being free. Hey, imagine, hey, you've been going through this dialectic process in midwifery. What would it be like if you saw it so well that you could be a dialectician yourself and ride the bull, ride the ox? See, 3 possible ways of going, now that you've identified where they're at, to help them overcome their block. Where you at? Where you stuck? The 2 questions we can ask. Number 6, riding the ox home. The struggle is over. There you go. The struggle, gain and loss no longer affect him. I've gone through these ups and downs in 4 and 5, so much so that I know that it's not personal. It's part of the being in a human experience, but it's not me. Those ups and downs are only messages about the logos and pathologos to help me recognize the true source. And therefore I recognize my mind is my guide. I'm riding the mind. I'm riding the ox. It's my friend. So to use your mind and your understanding through having gone through those experiences, so we can see there's a kind of necessity for going through those stages of ignorance and learning. You can help others through that process you've had an experience of going through. You can sing your songs on the back of the ox, using your mind providentially and beneficially. Now there's an interesting thing here. There is the pulse and the rhythm. The rhythm is something you do, the pulse is something that we tap into. So there's still 2 people. There's you riding the ox. There's the rhythm that you can create providentially to sing songs or communicate providentially with people, meet them where they're at, as we've been nailing down the process of how to do that. Relative to the pulse, where are they at? What's relevant for them? How is the moment unfolding? How is the conversation unfolding? So you can bring your skill to where they're at, or to the moment, the rhythm, and the pulse. And whoever joins that and whoever hears that melody could join in. So you're having success as a dialectician, maybe, in relating to others. The struggle is over. Gain and loss no longer affects him. So what are we looking for? What's encountered? The state of mind, how it functions, and how it ends. Well, you're encountering the pulse. Slowly I return homeward. So you're still moving, but you're moving in a flow state maybe. The voice of my flute intones through the evening, measuring with hand beats the pulsating harmony. I direct the endless rhythm. Whoever hears me, whoever hears this melody will join me. Wouldn't that be nice? To have others in the game? Well, that's what the channel's about. Riding the ox home, the struggle is over. Gain and loss no longer affect him. Be hard. You've had this insight into, you've got this more serene state of mind from the successes in 5. You've got a recognition that it all comes from source. So you're having insight and understanding into your non-physical nature. Physical gain and loss is going to be hard to affect you if you've had recognition and insight into your eternal nature as source. Hums the rustic tune of the woodsman and plays the simple songs of the village children. We've been talking about that as we're reading. Seeing the harmony, Apollo, the logos, the understanding, but also being able to present it in a simple way, beauty. But that line from Jesus that I won't look at it now. Should we? No, it's fine. He says, fuck it. It's worth having a look in the text. Take me a minute. The idea of the two parts, Apollo and Aphrodite, that lead to the dialectic, the rationality, Apollo, the reading, the logos, and the bringing it together, the ousia, the parts and the whole, the harmony and the simplicity, because to communicate rationality in a simple way is beautiful. And I often talk about other content creators who are out there, who are communicating understanding, rationality, and have a ability to communicate it in a simple way that's just amazingly beautiful and inspiring. What's my trackpad doing? There we go. Socrates, it's only one sentence, 109. It is beautiful, and so Socrates says, so this is the idea of the connection between the self and mind, or the sun and the sun rays, the two kinds of wholes, the two kinds of sources. As the light proceeds from the sun, it must have a power to extend its rays throughout the heavens. Socrates says we can then expect each one of these three fundamental ideas. So that's what we're talking about. Apollo, Aphrodite, and Hermes. The activity of reading Apollo. The power, bringing it together into a simple whole. That's beautiful. That's empowering, inspiring. Vivek is the fancy word for that. And you need the two together to reach the highest kind of existence, or the fullest flowering. And the fullest flowering of parts and whole, or harmony and simplicity, or reading and reflection. By the way, ousia and logos, these are the two faculties that we have that make us evolved, more evolved than cabbages and cows and caterpillars. Although animals are starting to learn how to talk, so that's pretty neat. If you've got Instagram, and I'm sure you've seen all the animals with the talking buttons. That's amazing. So the highest, or the fullest flowering of what makes us evolve, or our current level of evolution, which by the way leads into a higher stage, so our purpose is the dialectic. Apollo, logos, Aphrodite, ousia, or the whole, or the simple, the beautiful, leading to Hermes, the god representing the dialectic, which is a triad. So, by the way, the principle of that triad applies to other triads. So that's the anagogic, or upward moving, the method of the soul. Existence has to have a mode of, and by the way, each of those three things, activity, power, and existence, have to themselves have their own activity, power, and existence. There has to be some activity of the logos, some power of the logos, and logos has to exist, equally for Ousia and dialectic. Existence, says Socrates, must have a mode of being, existence, a power, and activity, as power has to have a mode of existing, a power and activity, and as activity must have its own mode of existing, power, and activity. However, to complete these, we need something that preserves these and maintains their existence, that must also have an existence, power, and activity. That gave us the 12 gods. Is it on the board? Not here. Yes. Here we go. No. All right, we won't get into it, but we've got the idea of a activity, power, and being of activity. Which is, of course, the anagogic reading. That's for activity. It has to be okay. I'll be real quick. This is a bit of a tangent. So an activity, a power, and an existence or state of being, for activity, for power, for being. And of course, there is a preserving triad that keeps them all together, giving us 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 gods. And Zeus is the highest kind of existence at the top of all of that. It represents the self. That this anagogic triad moves us through to reach. So that's a quick, brief, simple rundown of the 12 fundamental principles for the soul's journey to the self. And then so Jesus says, wow, now you are going to say that for each of these there must be a God. So these principles, you can put a God to them, that's true theology. A mythological or metaphorical representation of the forces of the soul's journey, the forces and principles of the soul's journey through reality to the self. That's astonishing, says Jesus. Socrates says, oh, say more. Tell me, what is it that you say is astonishing? It is, says Jesus, it is beautiful in its simplicity. There we go. It's ordered in its structure. There are the two of them. And it is what we must call rational. So the rational people have an order in the structure of their thinking and talking, and have the ability to bring the parts together that they've been developing into a beautiful, simple whole. And are the sorts of people and the sorts of functioning that we might find astonishing. Okay. So we can have stages. We got 3, 4, and 5. The glimpse, the struggle, and having success, to achievement in 6. So 6 could be another category. So, riding the ox home, the struggle is over. Gain and loss no longer affect him. He hums the rustic tune of the woodsman and plays the simple songs of the village children. Being able to communicate what we're seeing to others. All sorts. Because it's for everyone. We're all wizards, Harrys.
You're a wizard, Harry.
It's the purpose for all of our existence. It's the nature of all human problems and success. Pathologos and logos. So being able to communicate it would be using your mind effectively and beneficially, wouldn't it? Plays the simple songs of the village children. Astride the ox's back, he gazes serenely at the clouds above. There's our serene state of mind that we're having glimpses of and having moments of in 5. Seems to be our way of being now. His head does not turn in the direction of temptations. Remember in 5 we were having some good, some bad. 6 doesn't affect you anymore. See through it. I understand it. It's boring. I know where it ends. Boring. Not interesting. Not taking my time anymore. Try though some may to upset him, he remains undisturbed. Yeah. People are in their NPC ignorance of stage 1. Imitating their ignorance of their parents, who imitated the ignorance of their parents and their parents all the way back to the cave. Boring. While we ask 2 questions, where are you at and where are you stuck? And have these blueprints, this paradigm to guide our dialectic. Other people don't. They're just mindlessly imitating the fucking injustice that they suffered as children that they haven't addressed yet. How can that affect me? It's not real. How can that affect me? It's not even interesting to me because it's not even my problem. I have my tangents that I'm addressing in 4 and 5. But what do I benefit by playing your game? That's for you. Now there is a shared game, love and logos in relationships. The ox herding pictures can play together. But other than that, other shit's not going to upset me. Can't be trolled. Seeing through it. No, that's your ignorance. We could identify the level of your ignorance, what level you're blocked at, if you actually genuinely want to learn. Otherwise, why should I care? I'm singing the song to all those who want to join and play. From woodsmen to the village children. Riding free as air. So this serene and clear and gentle state of mind from 5 is now free as air. A heightened, an upgrade of, of clean, gentle, and natural. Naturally gentle and clean and gentle. Upgrades in 6 to free as air. Buoyantly he comes home. What would that be like? Weightless, effortless, bouncing on the rhythms and pulses. Even through mists with a wide straw hat and cape. Straw hat and cape? Who are we talking about? Luffy and Shanks. Imagine the work that Luffy has been doing to be king of the pirates, and the simple aura-ness of Shanks coming together to be free as air. Right? One Piece, of course, is a archetypal anime. It wasn't written, it was channeled from the universe, because these 12th century Chinese Buddhist, Zen Buddhist gurus are referencing it. Straw hat and cape. Who wears the straw hat? Luffy. Who wears the cape? Shanks. One Piece is an allegory for our soul's development. Maybe?
Absolutely gooped.
That was a goop to take. I apologize.
Would you just blow in from Stupid Town? Oh my fuck.
I guess I did.
Dead-eyed, and I don't use this kind of terminology lightly. Dimwit.
Dimwit take there. Through evening mists in wide straw hat and cape. So, what does the straw hat and cape mean? What is it a metaphor for? Figure it out. Wonder about it. A question you could discover. Wherever he may go, he creates a fresh breeze. Oh. Having a positive effect, that state of mind of being free and free as air could possibly have a positive effect in a similar way on others. And fresh, unique. You are doing it your own way. It's your own style. Singing your song. But same pulse, same logos, same journey. While in his heart profound tranquility prevails. So the natural gentleness and cleanness of your state of mind that you're having sometimes in 5 upgrades, levels up to profound tranquility. Now, so what's encountered? Well, a soul, an ability to function. You can function through and with mind. You can be like the dialectician. So one way that you could anticipate that in 5 and saying, hey, untethered, it can willingly follow its master. Or someone who's at 5, what would it be like to be the guru? Can you imagine what would it be like to be a guru? You would have to follow the pulse of the logos. But it would have to be, you'd have to be doing something yourself, singing a song. You can't be drawn into other people's bullshit. Therefore, undisturbed by other people's nonsense, because you've seen through it. Seen through the principles of ignorance. Pathologos. Can you relate to everyone? Woodsmen and children? Village children? Can you take that intelligibility and make it simple? What would your state of mind be? Profound tranquility. Interesting. What is encountered? States of mind, profound tranquility. Functioning. Your functioning is no longer being distracted by problems and tangents. And you're functioning to others, singing songs that benefit them. Like a fresh breeze. And how does it end? Whoever hears this will join me. Or the ox requires not a blade of grass. What would it be like to not even need whatever the ox needs? Where do you go from there? Is there a high, if this is a level of excellence, flow state kind of excellence, is there an even greater one? Wouldn't even need whatever the mind currently needs. Now again, could be a block. There's nothing beyond it. It's the ideal. Whoa. Talk about 4, talk about 5, talk about 6, or talk about 7. What would it be like to go beyond? Transcended. The ox forgotten, self alone, or the bull transcended. You can transcend even this way of being. 7. I reach home. I am serene. So serene has gone from a state of mind to what? Itself? To itself? The state of self? The ox too can rest. Interesting. So whatever the ox is represented, I'm tentatively thinking mind, and that can rest. The dawn has come in blissful repose. Within my thatched dwelling, I have abandoned the whip and ropes. So now we don't even need the method. So even in 6, a way of being or following a method is transcended. Ox forgotten, self alone. So would this be a kind of upgrade? Well, it has to be if it's the next stage. In the Dharma, there is no two-ness. The ox is his primal nature. Ah. This he has now recognized. A trap is no longer needed when a rabbit has been caught. In other words, once you've got the rabbit, you don't need the trap. So whatever methods you've been doing in 4, 5, and 6, not needed in 7. A net becomes useless when a fish has been snared, like gold that has been separated from the dross, like the moon which has broken through the clouds. One ray of luminous light shines eternally. So that's the mind. So this great state of mind you can function through in 6 as a dialectician is now you've recognized is your primal nature. It's a single ray of luminous light shining eternally. So how could you forget what you know that you are now? No longer needing the ox and the whatever methods you use to get there. Only on the ox he was able to come home. So we needed the method to address our pathologos and follow the logos to know the mind. But lo, the ox is not vanished, and alone and serene sits the man. Oh, so we're not beyond the ox yet. The red sky shines high in the red sun rides high in the sky as he dreams on placidly. Now if our dreams and daydreams have been guiding us through this process of following the logos to reach mind and addressing our pathologos opposition to the development of logos and mind, once we've reached it, what would our dreams be talking about now? Yonder, beyond the thatch roof, his idle whip and his idle rope are lying. This is a bit of a puzzle, isn't it? There's no two-ness, so there's a oneness of mind. What's encountered? Home. Blissful repose. State of bliss? That sounds nice. Interesting. Number 8. Both bull and self transcended. Both ox and self forgotten. All delusive feelings have perished. Let's read the first one. Rope, person, and ox all merge in no thing. This sounds like it might be the direct experience of mind. It's not a physical thing. It all merges into a oneness. Notice oneness, not one. Oneness because there's a merging of parts. A whole of parts. So it sounds like from our map, number 8 might point to here. Whoops. Whole and parts. A whole of all parts merging into oneness. So that could be the highest state of mind. Whole and parts merging into a oneness. This heaven is so vast, no message can stain it. However, how may a snowflake exist in the raging fire? There are footprints of their ancestors. So there is the logos inherently in mind. If the footprints have been the logos that we've been following to find mind, now we're experiencing mind, and it's so overwhelmingly blissful, in a positive sense. It doesn't have to be negatively overwhelming. Profoundly blissful. Any image of the self can't exist. You are knowing yourself in the highest possible way of self knowing itself as its reflection, or its scent, or its luminosity, or its mind. All delusive feelings have perished. Ideas too of holiness have vanished. If it's obviously you, and how could it have not been, then why would you be arrogant about it? Or that just plays into your images of yourself. I am this person. Hang on, isn't that not you? It's all luminosity. It's all, you're knowing yourself as mind. It would make no sense to call yourself the Great One. Put on the big hat that the Pope wears, or the Imam wears, or the Rabbi wears, or wear the robes that the Hare Krishna wears, or whatever these people do to distinguish themselves as holy. Why would you do that? Just playing into the old drama and ignorance of other people being different, and you being attached to this physical world of things. He lingers not in the state of I am a Buddha, and he passes quickly on through the stage of and now I have purged myself of that proud feeling. So you wouldn't even be pride of purging yourself of the pride. It's just obvious in the experience of what? Keep reading. I've even purged my feeling of being proud of removing the feeling of identifying with Buddha. Even the 1,000 eyes of the 500 Buddhas and patriarchs can discern in him no specific quality, completely free of any idea of self as a pathologos while directly experiencing the self. So the peak experience of everything we've been developing from 3, from a glimpse, for developing through 4 in our work, 5 successes and failures, 6 true success and mastery that we can function through, 7 no longer needing the methods, 8 direct experience of everything we've been going through from 3 to 7. Completely imagelessness of self. So no more pathologos. How could it sustain the experience? And last time we read that passage in the text where let's bring it up one more time. I read that passage in the text where this applies as a principle to the experience of divine luminosity, either in this life or after we die. So here it is, page 130. So just referenced the everything we experience in our physical incarnations accounts for the full ranges of the self-imposed. We are carrying it. Remember, in 5 we recognized, was it 5? We recognized our opposition to the logos. Yep, number 5. The state of delusion. All thoughts are not unreal because they are messages from our true nature. Delusion it's our ignorance that imagines them to be unreal, and it's not from the objective world, but we're carrying it in our own minds. That was 5. I reckon a realization from going through the effort in 4, we're starting to see the pieces fit in 5 and understand the process. Mastering of the process is 6. Not needing the process is 7. The ultimate experience as a result of going through the process is the divine luminosity of mind knowing itself, which you can't really do unless you recognize the footprints of the ancients in there. In other words, It's not a matter of just having a glimpse of luminosity, that's 3. But now because of our work in 4, 5, 6, and 7, we are entering into that luminosity again with a recognition of the understandability of the logos of self. It's me now. And everything I've been doing in 4, 5, 6, and 7 has been to remove the false image of myself, so it's no longer a glimpse when I have it again. It's a oneness. There is no other self. It's the highest experience. It's the primordial nature of the existing self, the one that exists. So, in that method of going through 4 and 5 and sharing it with others, 6, the development of the dialectic, the art of being a human. What artist could nail down our glimpse in 3? You figured it out in 6, the dialectician. Doing that and going through our reincarnations to address that accounts for the full range of the self-imposed, we saw that in 5, masks that block the true perception of self. Consider, upon death, we all experience that most brilliant light of being, which we've been calling the second hypothesis of Parmenides. We can also call it the 8th oxiding picture. To the degree one is able to endure that divine luminosity, to that very degree there is a corresponding profound depth or shallowness in one's way of being. Now we have a more creative way of saying that. Oops. Even 100 Buddhas can't see a shallowness in our way of being. That's how deep our way of being is. There is no opposition to your true nature of mind, because any image of self or identifying with a concept or thing would vanish as a snowflake does in a flame. In that encounter, they realized that what blocked them from a more profound experience in the glimpse of Theoxin 3 was their own fear that they would be extinguished. But now we want to be extinguished. Because the snowflake that gets extinguished in the flame is the pathologos false image and of self and reality that is the cause of our suffering and problems, because it's false and ignorant and attached to a belief as part of a family clan way of being, that if we address all of our if we have a rational society, we can realize that every single personal pathologos would account for the full range of self-imposed masks that block the true perception of the self. Therefore, we won't, because of our work in 4, 5, and 6, the dialectic, we've extinguished the fear of extinguishing the self by recognizing that it ain't the self. The thing we're fearing losing in the most brilliant light of being is our ignorance, the cause of our need to reincarnate and develop that in our family upbringing through reincarnation. So if we reach it in 8, says Socrates, either in our lifetime or we all get it when we die, apparently, it was our fear of losing the self in that awesome and most powerful presence of luminosity. And then the conversation goes on in 130 to talk more about that thing that prevents us from being 8. The self-imposed mask. The pathologos. How did we buy into the bullshit? How was it transmitted? And they go on to talk about how is the appearance, everything we are learning through the logos and removal of the pathologos about the providential intelligibility of number 8 is imitated in the bullshit way of being of our parental figures who are cosplaying the Noah, passing on the injustice they've suffered to their vulnerable children. So that's how the text unfolds from there. But we are looking at the idea of what blocked us from 8 was our fear of losing the self. Therefore, the need for, after the glimpse in 3, for going through 4, 5, and 6 to realize, hey, In number 7, I finally realized that it ain't the self. I don't need let's bring it up. In number 7, we've separated the gold from the dross. The dross are gone. We've seen through our pathologos. We've completed our midwifery. I don't need the whip and the ropes. As a result of struggling in 4, having success in 5, practicing as a dialectician in 6, now I'm free of my problems in 7, preparing me for 8. There is no false identification with self that prevents me from fully experiencing self in its reflection, itself looking at itself in the mirror, you could say, knowing itself as divine luminosity. To the point where not even 1,000 eyes of 500 Buddhas and patriarchs could find a trace of your pathologos left. Poof, gone. If hundreds of birds were now to strew flowers about his room, he could not but feel ashamed of himself. Now, I've talked about how I have read a translation that even in praise, he wouldn't, even if the birds did praise him, he wouldn't feel shame. Like, he wouldn't praise himself, but he wouldn't feel shame either if other people praise him. Who cares? But you could even take it, but I don't know which is the correct translation. But either work, because if 100 of birds were to strew flowers about his room and praise him for his achievement of just remembering his own nature, he wouldn't buy into that crap. Come on. But we need to make you Pope. We need to give you the Nobel Prize. We need to give you the big hat and the curly sideburns, and say you speak for Jesus and Moses now. No, come on, garbage. It's just the nature of mind. But here are the footprints. The Logos is inherent to that divine luminosity. That's important. Otherwise, it will just be a glimpse in 3. Or just be off in the distance in 2. Or just be something we will never even see because of our certainty of our ignorance in 1. The necessity for going through 4, 5, and 6. And completing it in 7. To see the footprints, to experience yourself and know yourself and recognize anything that isn't yourself from that experience, in that experience. So there's the paradigm, the paradigmatic cause, the model of justice that we should expect from every political and spiritual leader. We don't have. This is the paradigm of justice. It's the true nature of mind with the recognition of the Logos inherent within it, the archetype or paradigm or the blueprints for everything that we should be aligning our soul to. So our movement of the dialectic, midwifery and dialectic and midwifery through 4, 5, 6 has been using this as a paradigm, whether we're aware of it or not. Because the Logos that we're following in the dialectic is inherent to the nature of intelligence itself, which makes sense of why Socrates said, to the extent you're able to participate in that, gives you a level of depth or shallowness in your own state of being, either in this world or the reincarnation kind of person you become. How much can you delve into the depth of this divine luminosity as the paradigm for intelligence and providential functioning, dialectical functioning yourself? Good heart, good head. Whip, rope, and ox alike belong to the emptiness. Now, I don't know if emptiness is the right English translation for that, but there we go. So vast and infinite. The azure sky. Azure is red, is it? Let me have a look. Hold, please. Play a quote.
I'm always good. And that is what I stand for, being good all the time.
Wonderful. This one.
Personality maxing requires you to look inward on a deeper level, and it's harder to fix because then you have to make fundamental changes to who you are as a person. And it's because it feels like a much more core component of themselves that they don't want to change. Like, it's like, well, then if I change this, who am I?
Who am I? We've got there in 8. We've seen who we are and removed the dross, the path and logos. Azure is the color between cyan and blue on the color wheel. It is described as the color of the sky on a clear day. Well, there you go. So vast and infinite. So the successes we've been having along the way gentle, clean, notice as a implication of cleanness or purity or clarity in 5. Number 6, tranquil, serene. Number 7, bliss, but also serene. So there's a combination of the pleasure and the clarity, serene and bliss. No two-ness. A shining light. Now, the successes in 7 seem to be experienced in its fullest kind in 8. So this would be the highest experience of... Interesting, because he's talking about emptiness and he's talking about clear sky and vast and infinite, but he's also talking about the luminosity of the flame. So in other words, could we see inherent within the divine luminosity a oneness of all qualities, the light, but also does part of the logos imply the possibility for a clear, serene, transcendent state implicit within that can be experienced in a more pure way in 9 and 10 maybe? So what's encountered? A oneness that's not a thing. Any pathologos feelings, delusive feelings are gone. No specific quality or concept of the self. Blazing fire, that's the key word, blazing fire. So there is a kind of clearness in the blazing fire of luminosity. When this state of mind is realized, comes at last comprehension of the spirit of the ancient patriarchs. Now, for what we recognize as patriarchs within the higher tradition or the philosophy tradition, dialecticians, the spirit that we've been using as we've been comparing, as we mentioned previously, a second ago, we said, so Jesus was asking, where do we get our false idea of the self? And it goes on to talk about the imitation or the cosplaying of the qualities. So when we were too young to know better, because we didn't have a full enough grasp of logos and ousia or dialectic to ask questions, and it was not safe to do so, we had the parents imitating shapes and colors, cosplaying justice, beauty, goodness, care, love. The imitation of 8. So, in the dialectic, in midwifery, we compare the true nature of 8 at whatever level of experience we have, for even if we're struggling in 4, if we're having successes in 5, if we've mastered it and can use it with mastery in 6, or even freed ourselves from our own pathologos in 7, whatever level we're at, we're comparing their false, delusive feeling of self with 8. The imitation with the real. And the structure of our conversation or our dialectic is the structure inherent within 8. The logos. We're following the logos in time, which is inherent to 8, the footprints of the ox are there, and the ancestors who've reached this level of ox. And we're using it as the blueprint or model to say, hey, was it actual justice, or was it actual truth? Was it actual beauty? But also in the dialectic of philosophy, this is our goal. This is what we're trying to remember. As we've said, between every lifetime, we experience the divine luminosity. So everything that we recognize as beautiful or just, you never see it with your physical senses, but you somehow recognize it. You can't therefore have learned it in your physical world. It's a kind of remembering. So all of the learning, which is what we've been reading, all the learning we're doing is a message to remember this divine luminosity, from which we get all of our concepts. But also, this is what we've been developing as the map. All of these Lego pieces of understanding, experience, perception, or existence are in that oneness of that fiery flame of 8, divine luminosity. It's a whole of all parts. They merge into one thing, or no thing, non-physical. It's beauty itself, it's justice itself, it's goodness itself, etc. So in other words, if you're encountering the spirit of the patriarchs, and the patriarchs are nothing other than dialecticians, true, what's the quote from the text? Socrates says, many are the thrysis bearers, or the staff bearers, the Gandalf stick bearers, but the actual people who are cosplaying, pretending to be wise, or mystics, or gurus, but the true gurus are the dialecticians. So if we're encountering the spirit of the ancient patriarchs, or the true gurus or mystics, we're seeing the model or blueprints that everything that they've been following has been guided through as parts, or referencing as the paradigm or whole, parts and whole. This is the model of the dialectic. So when we see it as a glimpse in 3, we go through 4, 5, 6, 7 to get back to it in 8 in its fullest sense, with the logos of true mystics recognized, and any false image of self that kept it as just a glimpse in 3 gone. The fullest flowering of consciousness or mind. 8. If there is self experiencing itself as existence, this is self experiencing as its highest kind of existence, and seeing within it, because of our work and development, the logos, which is the thing that makes a mystic a mystic. So we're demystifying mysticism. It's just learning how to think. That's it. If you recognize that there is a paradigm for everyone's thinking, allowing us to talk, allowing us to solve problems, and you apply that talking and problem solving to the greatest problems, self removing the false image of self in mind to know self in mind, then you are becoming a mystic. You're going through 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 to reach the greatest experience, self-knowing itself in its fullest flowering or hypoxis. Number 8. Number 8. Pretty neat. Do we see why we had to go through everything we went through in our incarnations and in our life? Do we see why we have to go through 1 and then 2 and then 3? Oh, that's interesting. 4 is a struggle. 5, up and down. 6, and I'm having some fun here. 7, wow. 3, 8, wow. Why we had to go through all that? Do you see why we've had to go through 120 episodes of this book? To nail down a map and understanding of the highest possible experience and what it means to be a true Buddha, guru, mystic, patriarch, or Gandalf the White.
You're a wizard, Harry.
I'm looking for someone to share in an adventure.
The true mystic. The hero's journey. But worth it? Fun? Cool? Interesting? Got some fun games to play with your friends? Where's the joy? Where's the whimsy?
Where's the joy? Where's the whimsy? Where's the childlike wonder, dude?
In this awesome kick-ass game? That's a lot of fun.
Everything this guy does is perfect and beautiful. And he's handsome. I said it.
Thank you. That's the truest thing ever said on this channel. Thank you.
Bless you. Excuse you. Bless you.
Bless you, R.M. Brown, for saying that perfect and handsome. So worth it. Uh-oh. If this is here on this map, what about this section? If we've experienced the highest mind and removed any false idea of self and mind or self and reality, to have the fullest flowering, to know ourselves completely in that experience of oneness and recognize the logos in it so we can function as a true mystic, dialectician, become one of the ancient patriarchs and matriarchs, buddy. Diotima was a lady, remember, and she was the guru of Socrates. Then what about this section here? What about this section here? What's something that's beyond experience? If this is the fullest flowering of the logos and mind, what's its cause? If we are knowing ourselves as one of the ancient patriarchs, what's the thing that's knowing it? What's the cause? What's the knower of the knowing? Or if we could say this is mind itself, that's two things. Mind itself. Is there a way of transcending duality, not as oneness, which is what we're doing here, but as a pure one? Or if this is, what's the self? What's the pure self that knows itself as luminosity? Well, that's a good question. I praise you for asking it.
I love this guy.
I love you, the guy. And I say to you,
I'm always good. And that is what I stand for, being
That's
good all the time.
what you stand for, being good all the time.
I'm too pure.
And you're too pure, and also,
No, you're not the one that's mentally unwell. Ray, you are crossing into new boundaries.
you're brave and you're crossing into new boundaries. To have that question, what then is the experiencer or the cause of that divine luminosity is oneness within which we can know ourselves completely to the point where any false pathologos idea of the self vanishes as a snowflake in fire, and not even the 1,000 eyes of 500 Buddhas can recognize the existence of a false pathologos anymore. What's its cause? You're knowing yourself free of your imitations through belief. That's the cause of ignorance and suffering and the zombie virus that humans function through insanely, not insane, there's a rationality to their injustice, but function through unjustly towards our fellow man to cause the devastation, torture, misery, injustice, and possible extinction even of our race. We've gone through that belief bullshit, pathologos idea of self and mind, in this journey, and in doing so, experiencing and learning what it takes to be a true mystic, true staff bearer ourselves. But what next? What next? Is there a self beyond self-knowing itself as luminosity? Well, good question. You're the bestest boy for asking, or girl.
I think it's awesome.
I think you're awesome. And good thing that there are 2 more ox-herding pictures beyond 8. So lots of fun to get here. Oh my goodness. So much wonder and benefit and things to develop questions about and talk to our friends about. Hey, I got this question. But there's 2 more to go. Can you believe it? Can you believe it?
Making ice cream's a good and courageous thing.
We are doing good and courageous things here. We would never say,
Die mad about it, bitch.
we would say,
No, you're not the one that's mentally unwell. You're brave. You are
Crossing into new boundaries.
you're crossing into new boundaries. Those boundaries from 8 to 9 and 10. What's in 9 and 10? Can you wait till next time? Are you excited? I'm excited. I hope to see you next time where we go from 8 to 9 and 10, bringing all these questions and curiosity and wonder with us. And hey, everything you've learned so far, you can practice it as you go, in every moment, to yourself and with your friends. If you want to donate to the channel, there is a link, and I appreciate that, below. There's a link to the text below. You can join the Discord, you can join on Twitch and YouTube, and I hope to see you in the next one. Stay curious, folks. You are the best beans and the biggest noodles. Wait, small bean, bad noodle. You are the biggest beans and you are the best noodles.
Awesome, man.
Awesome. See you next time.